Hello, I'm Jonasz Rewinski and you're watching Break the Fake. They make them, we break them, and tell you everything you need to know. Alright, so Ramzan Kadyrov might resign for the 6th time in a decade. Or not. Probably not. Definitely not. Who knows? Once again, Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov has humbly asked to be released from his burdensome duties, just like he's done at least 5 times before over the last 10 years. Because nothing screams desperate to leave like staying in power longer than anyone else in Russia's regional leadership club. This time, his emotional outcry was shared via the state outlet Chechnya Today, though nobody noticed it until the next day, likely because we've all seen this movie before. Right, so here's the quote of the day. "I'm actually the one asking to be relieved. Another person would have their own visions and ideas." These are the words of Ramzan Kadyrov bravely volunteering for retirement again. But wait, before you dare take him seriously, he quickly clarified on Telegram. "People misunderstood me. Only one person decides whether I stay or go. Our Supreme Commander-in-Chief, the President of Russia, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. I am a foot soldier. I am a team player. If there is an order, I carry it out." End of quote. That's a subtle way of saying, I'm not going anywhere, unless Daddy says so.
Знаете, если бы у меня было еще больше таких пехотинцев, и один такой пехотинец мог бы встать.
In a heartwarming moment of absolutely not staged patriotism, an ancient T-34 tank made an appearance, presumably rolled out of a museum, to say an emotional farewell to its shiny grandchild, the T-90M Proryv. It is a real tearjerker story, except it's about tanks and naturally about propaganda. Now, you might remember the T-34. It's been hailed as the legend of World War II, known in Russia as the Great Patriotic War, by the way, and was quite the poster child for the Soviet military effort after the hostilities ended. At one point, every town, every village in Russia, and the Soviet bloc in general, had one of these proudly displayed on some concrete pedestal, accompanied by some cliched communist slogans or Soviet insignia, before the venerable machines finally succumbed to rust, scrap metal theft, or political change. Yeah, good riddance. This time, however, we actually have a live specimen here, a tank still rolling under its own power, appearing in another propaganda video alongside its more modern counterparts. Because, you know, nothing screams advanced military power quite like symbolically passing the torch from an 80-year-old relic to a tank model that is still struggling to survive Ukraine's drone strikes. This touching farewell was of course filmed at Uralvagonzavod, the proud birthplace of both tanks and a perfect stage for propaganda content. We can only assume the T-34 whispered, "Run while you still can, as you probably won't survive Ukrainian FPV drones," before being towed back into storage. The T-34 kind of had an easier life, really, because the threats back then were simple and predictable: landmines, other tanks, artillery strikes, and aircraft. The T-90, however, has a tougher task to accomplish, because these supposedly mighty machines often end up being blitzed by tiny drones worth a fraction of their price. Latest reports show that the Russian tank has several design flaws that make it vulnerable, not least the ammo storage system that makes it somewhat prone to launching its own turret into low orbit in a fiery display of not-so-great Russian technology. Also, at least one T-90 has been embarrassed by a Bradley IFV, pummeled into submission by its 25mm rapid-fire cannon. For reference, your typical main battle tank gun is 120 or 125mm, depending if you're NATO or Russian. Translated, your tank is not supposed to die from a 25mm gun salvo, period. Still, the T-90 is at least an actual battle-ready tank. Anyone remember the T-14 Armata? Yeah, that other Russian super tank that was so high-tech that it's probably got some sort of cloaking device, because literally nobody saw any of them beyond the parade grounds, where one of them actually broke down during an event. Also, good luck with mass-producing this thing without Western electronics, unless there is going to be a budget version, presumably with, no radio and manual crank window handles or something. The T-34 probably isn't 100% safe either, however. Seeing how Russia keeps resurrecting tanks from the 1960s because of heavy losses, it might not be long before this museum piece is brought back from the dead for some desperate operation on Ukrainian soil. If Putin is so insistent on doing his Stalinist cosplay act, why not go all the way with zombified tanks from World War II? The 7th of May marks exactly 25 years since Vladimir Putin officially became the leader of Russia, and what better way to celebrate than with a state-funded tribute to, well, himself. In a tribute, Pavel Zarubin, the Kremlin's state propagandist and Putin's most loyal personal reporter, has unveiled Russia, the Kremlin, Putin, 25 years. A documentary so saturated with reverence it makes a royal coronation look like a casual brunch and rivaling the emotional depth of a Latin American soap opera. Have you ever wondered what lies beyond the Kremlin walls? Well, wonder no more. Zarubin takes us on an exclusive tour of Putin's modest abode, complete with a private gym, a built-in chapel, and chandeliers that scream a true man of the people. And let's not forget the humble kitchen where Putin sips kefir, reminding us that he's just like us, if we all had palatial apartments and absolute power.
Нас угощать ничем не надо. Спасибо большое.
Почему?
Хотели, вас
Чё?
посмотреть.
Пойдемте, я вас посмотрим, что-нибудь найдем. Проходи. Кефирчика могу угостить.
Кефирчик. Буду, если можно, спасибо большое.
Ряженка есть. Что вы
Кефир,
предпочли?
если можно.
Кефир? Хорошо.
Спасибо большое.
Это вот.
Вы, то есть, и на кухне тоже сами?
Ну да. Ну нет, почему? Ребят приходят, помогают.
Мгм.
Ну сейчас-то зачем? Мы с вами кефир сами нальем. Это подарок Александра Григорьевича как раз.
Ага.
Всякие шоколадки. Белорусские очень вкусно. Могу побаловать вас, если хотите.
Спасибо большое. Кефирчик только, пожалуйста.
Хорошо.
Сегодня читал, кстати, статью о том, что в Китае бурный рост поставок российских продуктов.
Хотите? Да. Возьмите, пожалуйста. 40. Я как-то не могу оттуда их вытащить.
Упаковал Александр Григорьевич.
Забирайте. Пойдем. Там поудобнее нам будет сидеть просто. Да.
В это время бывает, да, позволяете себе?
Что?
Кефир.
Ну, да,
Может
я
быть,
стараюсь.
легкий ужин даже.
Да нет, стараюсь уже в это время не есть. Садись-то.
Все российское, да?
Ну, конечно. А че же?
Спасибо большое.
And with this, we end this episode of Break the Fake. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.